Over the last year and a half, our world has certainly been changed by the coronavirus. In the language of the youth, they would say, that's facts, not cap. So for us, it just means that's true, not false. And I've been personally amazed at how we have taken so many steps as a society to avoid COVID. On a worldwide scale, we have all treated the coronavirus as though it is the deadly sin. You know, many years ago, it was normal for people to take serious and at times extreme steps to avoid all of the 7 deadly sins: pride, lust, anger, avarice, gluttony, envy, sloth. It was normal to do that. But today it seems as though the only deadly sin, the only one we really try to avoid, is COVID. And so we've taken extreme and very serious steps to do all we can to avoid the possibility of getting COVID. In the language of today's gospel, we could say, if breathing the same air as someone else could cause COVID, either for yourself or the other person, cut it off. It's better for you to spend your whole life wearing a mask than to possibly transmit COVID and die. So that's true. Or if going on a vacation could cause your whole family to get COVID and sick, cut it off. It's better for you just to have a staycation, stay at home, than for possibly your family to get COVID and die. And that's true. Or someone say, if going to your workplace might cause you to get COVID, cut it off. It's better for you to stay at home and do all of your meetings on Zoom for the rest of your life than to possibly get COVID and die. Some might say that's cap. We all know for certain one thing is that COVID is certainly seen as the deadly sin of our society. And so it's quite impressive, we can all just admit it's quite impressive at the steps our society has taken to avoid the near occasion of getting COVID. Now I have a question for you. Why would a good, loving, and all-powerful God allow COVID? Because the only reason a good, loving, and all-powerful God would allow COVID is if he could bring a greater good out of it. That's what we believe as Christians. Just as a good, loving, and all-powerful God allowed the greatest evil to happen, which is, look at the crucifix, the death of Jesus, and that brought about a far greater good. 2 reasons just being we have real meaning to our suffering here on earth and the possibility of going to heaven forever. Those are pretty 2 good reasons that evil brought about a greater good. The same is true with any evil we encounter in this world, and that includes COVID. So the only reason a good, loving, and all-powerful God would allow COVID is because God can bring greater good out of it. And there are many reasons that we could list for why God would allow an evil like COVID to happen. But I'm just going to provide one for you today. And that is, God is teaching us a lesson about how to avoid sin. Think about it. If over the last year and a half, we've trained ourselves as a society to take in serious and extreme steps to avoid the possibility of getting the deadly sin of COVID, can't we also train ourselves as a society to take serious and extreme steps to avoid the real deadly sins, like lust? Because that's what the saints did. I'll share a great story. St. Thomas Aquinas. One day, Thomas Aquinas ran away from home because he wanted to join the newly established Dominican order. But his parents were noble, elite, and they hated this idea because the Dominicans were beggars, and so they did not want their son to be a Dominican. So his parents got Thomas kidnapped and actually locked him away in a castle that they had. They tried many attempts to get him to leave the Dominicans. Nothing worked. So his brothers came up with an idea. Have you heard about their idea? They got a prostitute and shoved her into the room with Thomas, hoping that he would fall into the deadly sin of lust and abandon his religious vocation altogether. But Thomas took a serious and extreme step to avoid the deadly sin of lust. He went to the fireplace, got a flaming log, and chased the prostitute out of the room, and then he emblazoned the sign of the cross on the door, fell down to his knees weeping, praising God for keeping him free from the deadly sin of lust and killing his soul. Like St. Thomas, a couple months ago, I was just in my room by myself, went on my phone. I looked at the search function on Instagram. I'd never done this before. And I'm just scrolling through. And then all of a sudden, multiple sexually charged images and videos are right there for the taking. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I only follow like Catholic things on Instagram. And here, right in front of me, by one click, is pretty much free access to porn. Thanks be to God, I immediately turned off my phone, said a prayer, and thanked God, because it's been over 10 years for me since I've fallen into the deadly sin of lust through pornography and masturbation. I've been free for over 10 years, and I am not going back to that former way of life. You might not know it, but Instagram says that it's a family-friendly app and that it has strict nudity rules. But it's a fact, look it up, that Instagram is overrun with pornographic and other sexually charged images and videos that are accessible to youth, to your youth. And according to a website, Fight the New Drug, if you type in the hashtag sexy, you'll see more than 57 million posts, many being actual clips from porn sites. You know, when I was in grade 7, it was actually really hard to find this stuff. But now it's actually really hard not to find it. You know, I even just looked up a golf video on YouTube, and then in related feed is like some girl wearing barely nothing swinging a golf club. Like, what the heck is going on with our society? As a priest, like, I try to avoid this at all costs. It's like trying to find me. So in the language of today's gospel, if scrolling through Instagram or YouTube causes you to fall into the deadly sin of lust, cut it out. It's better for you to delete the apps and go to heaven than to fall into the deadly sin of lust and go to hell forever. That's true. That's facts. Jesus is really serious about sin. And hell is a real possibility for each one of us. The list can go on and on and on. Or if you're a parent or someone who has an influence over the youth, if you allow this stuff to happen, if you just allow your children to be exposed to this stuff, listen to what Jesus says in today's gospel. If any of you put a stumbling block before one of these little ones who believe in me, it would be better for you if a great millstone were hung around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. That applies to you and me who have influence over youth. If we just allow this stuff to happen and our youth to fall into the deadly sin of lust, if we just allow it to happen, think about the great millstone. My brothers and sisters, COVID has proven that we can take serious and extreme steps to avoid the deadly sin of Kovid. We all know it to be true. So maybe, just maybe, one reason a good, loving, and all-powerful God would allow this evil to happen is to teach us a lesson. Maybe just to wake us up a little bit to the reality of what's actually taking place. Because COVID's an evil. Physical death is something no one wants. God never planned that to be true. But spiritual death, eternal separation from God in hell, that's serious. At Fatima, Mary revealed to the children in elementary school, hell. And she said that the number one reason the people go to hell is the deadly sin of lust. It's a good time for us to wake up, not only for ourselves, but those that we have an influence over, and actually start to take into account what's happening. If at the end of time, when this world passes and we're all before the judgment seat of God, if the evil of COVID allowed one more person overall to turn away from sin and to go to heaven, it was worth it. Each one of us have the real possibility of going to hell, myself included. Let's allow the evil of COVID and what we've done as a society to take serious and extreme steps to avoid the deadly sin of COVID, to wake us up and to change our lives.